Hello, welcome to the final part of the Human Comedy Guide series. Today my car of choice will be the Renault RS01. It seemed to be, out of all of these cars that I do own, the Group 3 cars that I own, it seems to be the best on fuel, so there might be cars that I haven't tried that are good on fuel as well, but that one seems to be the best one by quite a margin. Other options that would also be decent enough for this event would probably be the Peugeot RCZ, the Porsche RSR, the Honda NSX, and also the Ferrari, but I don't really recommend the Ferrari because it's very snappy and quite hard to drive, so just probably stay away from that one. And also the Mazda RX Vision concept is also pretty good. It's probably the more stable option out of the ones I mentioned, so if you're struggling with driving the car, then maybe that one's a good one for you. But all of those cars don't quite have the same fuel efficiency as the Renault from what I've found. And pretty much every other car here is just worse on fuel. Some of them are actually kind of quick and you could possibly turn up their fuel maps to match the sort of fuel efficiency of the Renault, but I'm just going with the Renault today. I know I only suggested a few cars, but if you're really struggling to drive them, then feel free to try other cars, because the Renault, when I finished the race, I still had about 4 laps of fuel left, and even though a lot of these cars aren't anywhere near as fuel efficient as the Renault, they should still be enough to make it towards the end of the race without an extra pit stop. And a few suggestions that I would have for you to try if you're struggling with driving the cars would be the Mustang. Just turn up the fuel map to maybe 2 or even 3. The Aston Martin's also a very drivable Group 3 car with decent fuel efficiency. The Alfa Romeo 4C is actually not too bad to drive, and it's also quite good on its fuel. The Honda Genesis can be a little bit punchy on throttle. It likes to move around a bit on throttle, but it's also quite good on its fuel and it's quite quick as well. I really like to drive this Jag. It's a very nice car to drive. However, on the first fuel map it chews up a lot of fuel, so I'd suggest to take it to about fuel map 3 if you're going to use that one. 2 cars to avoid with absolutely shocking fuel efficiency would be the Corvette and the Genesis X. They have really bad fuel usage and you'd probably have to take an extra pit stop. And for all the other cars I mentioned, they're probably alright. I'd just suggest put them on fuel map number 2 to make it to the end. I'm going to be doing the race on hard tyres. The mediums aren't actually too bad, but they start to feel a little bit weird a little later in the stint, so both should be okay, but I'm going to be doing the hards for this race. Before we get into the race, I do want to mention that this race is really hard. It's probably the hardest of the Human Comedy series. AI are really quick, and you need to be onto it. You need to have really good lines, braking points, acceleration points, good car control if you're going to keep up with them. As it is, I do think it's going to be quite difficult for a lot of people to achieve the win on this race. I do hope they tone down the level of difficulty on this one just a wee bit, but I hope to try help you here find a little bit of pace and help with the strategy a little bit to help you do as well as you can on this race. So just like every other race in the series so far, we're going to put traction control on number 1 just so we don't have to worry about getting too much wheel spin or spinning the car on throttle as much. For fuel, we're going to leave that on map number 1. That should take us to the end. I'll update you if it doesn't. And at the start of the race, you just want to get through as many positions as you can, as quickly, smoothly, and as cleanly as possible. Don't get yourself involved in too many accidents or spins. And this car can be a little bit snappy, so I'd suggest to carry a little bit of throttle into turns to stabilize the car, because if you suddenly drop the throttle when coming into turns, then the car's likely going to spin on you. So just be careful with that. And yeah, you just got to take your positions where you can. It'll take some time for you to get to the front. The guys at the front are really quick. And once you get to the front, I think it's that BMW M6 picks up its pace and it's super quick, so just be aware of that. We should be aiming to have just 1 pit stop in this race for fuel and tyres, and that'll be just after the 30-minute mark. If you can pit after the 30-minute mark, then you know you're on track to do this race with just 1 pit stop. If you're pitting with more than 30 minutes to go, then you're probably going to have to take an extra pit stop, or you're just going to have to change your fuel map and be a bit more fuel efficient. And just again with the AI, I'm not sure if the latest patch has fixed it, but just be aware if your AI is stupidly difficult on the easy setting or the normal setting, put your difficulty on hard, because there's a known issue that AI have been a bit broken on the easy difficulty. And even on the harder difficulty, the AI will always perform slightly different on every attempt that you make. So if you have attempts with AI just way quicker, then I'd suggest restart the session and have another go. The AI might drive a slightly slower race. This is probably one of the hardest runs I've had so far. At this point I'd usually be in 3rd or 2nd. I'm still way back here, so let's see if we can make this work. And also there will be no rain for this race, so you don't have to worry about that. It's very important to know the track before doing this race, because you need to have good consistent laps. So if you're struggling with pace around here, go learn the track first before taking on this event. So it's time for a bit of a guide around this track. So first we're going to look for those black boards at the top of this first corner. We're going to brake between the second and the last one, right in the middle, just before on the early side I think. I use all this curb here, just pull the car to the middle of the track down to first gear. Keep the throttle around half, otherwise the car's going to flick around here, then begin to pick it up all the way to the outside here. We're going to go up to 4th gear, Gonna have a bit of a lift here, bring the car sort of towards the left side of the track, second gear, get the car grip up towards the middle of the track. As we get towards the apex, we pick up the throttle. We can use all of this exit road over here. Now down to the long sweeping corner at the bottom here. There's a bit of a strip of concrete here. We're gonna brake after it ends right there, down to third gear. Be patient, let the car grip up. As we get towards the apex, we begin to pick up the throttle coming up the hill. Don't go that wide, you don't want to go to the grass, that would be nasty. Over here, we're gonna brake a few car lengths down this curb towards the middle of that curb there. Over this inside curb there, over the inside curb here. Now we've got to be careful here. We might have to have a little bit of a lift, otherwise the car's going to run out into the grass there. Be careful over there. Don't use that sausage curb that we just went past, because sometimes it flicks you up into the air. Now coming down the hill, we're going to look for this wall on the left of us right here. We're going to brake just before it ends and shift down to second gear by the turn. So right here, just before it ends, down to second gear. Now hold half throttle so the car doesn't flicker, and then begin to pick up the throttle again on turn and exit. Now here, just use all the track available. Use all of the curb on the inside here, and then same, we're going to cut all the way across this curb right here on the inside. Steering inputs as minimal as possible. We're going to brake before the 50 board here, just a wee bit before it, down to fourth, then third. Don't cut too much of this curb, that's about right. There's a curb on the left, brake, turn just after it ends. I would actually turn a little bit too late there, and I carry too much throttle into that turn. So turn just after that curb on the left ends back there, and then lift as well. We're going to brake just before that board on the right there. Turn fourth gear, pick up the throttle about halfway through, carry the car to the outside using all of the track to the line. Wasn't the best lap I've done at all, but it was still, but hopefully that's good enough to help you get a little bit quicker at this track. So at this point we have that BMW at the front, and he's absolutely tearing away. I can only assume that these two guys in front have soft tyres on or something to make them go so quick. I'm not going to worry about them too much for now, because I'm sure we'll catch them up with all the pit stops. So we're at the end of lap 10 now. We have both P1 and P2 entering the pits, so that puts us up into P1. We still have another 7 laps of fuel remaining. I broke a little bit late into that turn, but yeah, we've got quite a few people going into the pits now. So we've got plenty of fuel to spare, and our tyres are still damn good, so we'll be lasting for a while still, and we will get past the 30-minute mark. Now, depending on how well you've saved fuel, if you haven't saved fuel very well, you might have to pit on this lap, which is lap 16. But I've still got 1.1 laps of fuel remaining, so I'm going to take an extra lap, and I'm going to pit at the end of lap 17, and we should finish with pretty much no fuel left in the car. Right, we're coming around the final turn. I've only just got enough fuel, but we'll make it to the pit lane, and perfect. Now I'm just going to replace the tyres just to gain a little bit more grip, and we're going to fill up the tank, and that should take us to the end of the race, because we've pitted quite well after the 30-minute mark, so we've only got 25 minutes to go. A full tank will definitely take us to the end of the race. Right, out of the pits we come, and we're sitting about 7th position, 18 seconds off the lead, so we are quite far back for now, but I'm assuming most of these guys are going to end up pitting again, so we should catch up to them by the end of the race. Lap 19, and one of the guys up front is already pitting, so I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing the rest of them pit over the next few laps, and so we shouldn't have to pit again, so we shouldn't have to worry about them again either. At lap 22 now, and most of those guys that were in front of me have pitted, and we've got one more that I'm about to overtake. He seems to be going a bit slower. He'll probably end up going to the pits as well. And then, by this point, we should have quite a solid lead, and all we have to do now is just keep consistent to avoid the guys from behind catching up and overtaking us, because they are pretty quick when they're on new tyres. So it is the final lap now, lap 30. We still have 5 laps of fuel left, so we could have probably afforded to have not taken as much fuel on the pit stop, but that's okay, we're still quite far ahead. We're 20 seconds ahead, so it's not as much as I have had a gap on the drivers on other races. To be honest, the AI have been pretty quick in this race, especially on this run. At least at the start, I noticed that it took me a lot longer to even get towards the front of the pack. On other attempts, I actually got to first place before they first pitted. It wasn't the case this time around, and it's taken me quite a long time to get up to pace. I've only done my best laps in the last few laps of this race, so I definitely suggest getting yourself up to speed at the track, because the AI are really quick here. I will admit it's very difficult to do this race, so just focus on getting your pace up at this track, spend some time doing it, and hopefully by following a similar strategy you should get the win here. And there we go, we've taken the win, the final win of the Human Comedy series. That was difficult, that was definitely the most difficult one I think so far. At the end of that, we're only 22 seconds ahead of the next car, and every other car behind wasn't too far back. My pace in the first half of this race was about 1 to 2 seconds slower than what I was driving towards the end of the race, so if I kept that pace up right throughout the race, maybe this gap would be closer to double. But you do need to focus on keeping the car straight. If you spin or crash at all, then it's pretty much game over. I had maybe 3 or 4 occasions on this race that I just did that I went either wide off a track, or I got snap oversteer and I had to sort of come out of a bit of a slide, which would have cost me probably up to 6 or 7 seconds alone. And 3 times I accidentally got a bit loose there and cut across the grass area just before the penalty zone. So those half-second penalties probably end up being about a second each, so that's another 3 or 4 seconds. And yeah, this car's not the easiest to drive. You're going to have to be careful with your throttle, even in the high-speed sections, just lifting a little bit when you need to, just controlling the balance of the car. And like I said, I'm not sure if they've fixed the whole easy difficulty bug yet, but these events are supposed to be one set difficulty, and if this is the difficulty that it's supposed to be, I'd say that's very, very difficult. And it's going to be quite difficult for a lot of people to actually achieve this. So if you do struggle with this car, I'd highly suggest to play around with a few of the other cars that I mentioned. I actually found the Ford Mustang GT3 to be really quick here, but its fuel wasn't very good. You could give it a go, but I'm not sure if you'd make it with 1 pit stop. You'd probably have to turn the fuel map up to 2 or something, but then it slows down, so don't know. But now we finally get to see the reward cars. Here's the first one, and I wonder what the second one's going to be, because this one's the one for all the bronze results. Here we go, our gold result. Nice Aston Martin here, DB5. I'm sure a lot of you have seen these cars already, but I haven't been aware of the reward cars until now, so pretty neat. I'll have to give them a go and see what we can use them for later on. But for now, I hope this series has helped you guys complete these missions. This one's definitely the hardest one, so good luck getting through it. My biggest recommendation is just to learn the track and pick up your pace at it. It'll take some time, I know, but you need the pace and you need the consistency as well. And you definitely need the comfort. If you're not comfortable in the car that you're driving, you're probably going to struggle to do good lap times. Even if the car is technically fast, if you're not comfortable with it, it's not going to be fast. As always, if you have your own tips or suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments. And thank you all for the support in this series. It's actually been a lot better than I expected. And I'm looking forward to new content that comes into GT7, and I'm sure I'll be getting onto some guides with those too. So take care, and I'll catch you guys in new videos shortly. If you guys do want to keep up with latest sim racing news, updates, and really awesome articles, then check out simrace247.com, and you'll also find some of my content on there as well. Take care guys, and I'll see you in a video very soon.